time. All right. Thank you, Michelle. We are so excited to have you. If you don't know for some reason, I think you all know, but she's here to teach us about LinkedIn and resume building. She has an amazing background, tons of experience. She is exactly who we were looking for this call. So thank you. Please introduce yourself and take it away.
Awesome. So, hi, my name is Michelle. I am going to walk you through a presentation, but I just wanted to start off and say, yes, I know this is very overwhelming and scary and all of those things. And I really do, I have a passion for teaching people how to do this, but at the same time, I tell people this all the time. There is a reason that I have a job. This is a difficult thing. It is not often taught. Resume writing, branding, LinkedIn optimization. It is not often taught to people in school or at work or any of that stuff. So by all means, I want you to take as much as you can from this presentation, but also know I am here to help. Again, there's a reason that I have a job. So reach out to me. I can help you with this if you want some help, if you're still struggling after the fact. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Can we all see this? Is it on presentation mode? Let's
Not yet.
Let's see. Now are we on presentation mode?
We are, but we see like the notes on the next screen.
Oh boy. Okay, hold on. Look, you got, uh-oh. I'm sorry, everyone. Here, give me one sec. I am, let's see.
I
Hopefully
do
that
this
worked. I had
every
it
time too.
connected, but not showing on my other screen. So, wait a sec. Now are you still seeing the notes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
That's
hold
fine.
on. My poor computers. You guys, this is the beauty of technical difficulties. Now my mouse just died. Here we go. So you're going to have a little bit of everything, I think. Sorry
Perfect.
about that, everybody.
No, you're fine.
Um, well, can you still see me at all?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to do it this way, a little bit old school. Tech challenges happen. I tell everyone part of teaching courses is rolling with it sometimes. So here we are. But yeah, today we're going to talk about personal branding and career transitions. So how to uh, make your resume and your LinkedIn profile work for you. I'm having major issues. That's okay. So a little bit about me. I started my career in recruiting, and that's really where I saw people struggling with presenting the best version of themselves. So I had people coming to me, asking me how to dress for interviews, how to present themselves on resumes, how to interview, all of this stuff. And so I was doing all this resume work on the side. And that's when I started exploring how I could really delve into this because I had always done some capacity of writing and I always really enjoyed it. But I wanted to help people and really focus and hone in on this area of expertise that I kind of found. And so that's when I started my company. I got certified as a professional resume writer in 2014, and I got certified and I started my business Right Styles. So I've been doing this for about 10 years, which is crazy to say. But now I work with clients in a one-on-one capacity. So I help people communicate value through stories that attract the right opportunities. And that's through targeted resumes, through LinkedIn profiles, through personal branding, online bios, and compelling copy if people do need help with web copy. So I do all of that, but my main goal and what I am here today to help you do is feel a little bit more confident about building your brand through your resume, through your LinkedIn profile, and just making sure that this is aligned with the kind of opportunities that you are interested in. So, what is personal branding? A lot of people have heard this, they're not really sure what it is, but personal branding is the ongoing process of creating, establishing, and communicating a clear statement of impact about who you are to others. So most of us know to some extent that we have a reputation, but a lot of people are not actually intentional about the reputation that they're building. So part of your personal brand is making sure that you are aware of the messaging you're putting out. So when I say messaging, it is your resume, it's your LinkedIn profile, it's the conversations that you have with your connections, it's these networking groups. All of that is part of this personal brand. And when you're applying for a job or you're asking a connection to make an intro or a referral, you want to make sure that this personal brand that you put out there backs you up and provides evidence to your claim that you're great at what you do and that you are aligned with those jobs that you're interested in. So you'll hear that as a common theme throughout this whole presentation. And by all means, I am having a little bit of trouble right now seeing the chat. So if you want to call out your questions, go for it. I will leave time for questions at the end, but if you want to call out questions, please go ahead and do that. Okay, so first off, the first piece of creating a cohesive personal brand, building your resume, your LinkedIn profile, all of this starts with establishing your personal brand identity. So you have full control of the narrative you want to share with others. And that's really empowering when you think about it, because often it's very easy to feel that if you've been in a certain area, I know a couple of you said you're trying to pivot into different areas, like out of paid social into product marketing, all of that different stuff. So it's very easy to rely on the experience that you have, but it is very empowering, again, when you think about the fact that you have full control of the narrative that you want to share. So you're all in marketing. It's about telling the right story that resonates with the opportunities that you want. Because regardless of the experience that you have, if that's not something you want to do going forward, that's not something you really want to focus on and highlight. So you want to have a clear vision of what you want your personal brand to say, who you're talking to, and what message you want to get across. So you can highlight the most important and relevant information. I know you all know a lot about that because you're all in marketing. But with that said, it is much harder to market yourself. Okay, so 2 is considering your target audience. This is the same thing you do when you're building out those marketing campaigns. So who is your target audience? Some of you have recently said that you've landed jobs, which is incredible. So your target audience is probably a combination of your clients, whether you just want to keep your eye out for the next opportunity, so prospective employers. If you're doing any freelance work, it's probably prospective clients. But consider who you're talking to, because if you are talking to a prospective client, your tone, it's going to be a lot different than speaking to a prospective employer and wanting to land a job. Now, it's not to say that those have to be mutually exclusive. You can touch on both, but consider that when you are writing your resume and your LinkedIn profile. This is definitely a bit more important when it comes to LinkedIn because it's in first person. So you're going to be literally speaking to your audience. So again, keep that in mind, but everything you do, you want to consider who is going to be reading this. This isn't that much of an issue in marketing, but for example, I speak to a lot of people in tech, and people often come to me and they're like, well, people in my role would know and assume that I do this. And that may be true, but it is important to realize that the first level, the first people that are going to be looking at your resume and or your LinkedIn profile, if they're scouting you for a job, those are going to be HR people and recruiters. So they're going to have some surface level knowledge, but they may not know the technical jargon that you have in your role and that you use. So just keep that in mind. Does anyone have any questions while I'm here?
I had one, like, does your personal brand, if you're applying to 3 different jobs and they're all a little different, does your personal brand kind of change based on what you want to highlight, or is it more static because it's who you are and how you present yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's going to be a little bit more static with your resume. You are going to want to cater it to the specific jobs you're interested in. So you may articulate keywords and phrases, but usually when you are interested in different jobs, say it's in product marketing, say it's in paid social and branding or brand marketing, whatever, those 3 different areas, you may be able to find a common thread between them. So more often than not, when clients come to me, they'll say, I have these 3 different areas that I'm applying for. But when you look at the job description side by side, there's a common thread that's creating that attraction, that's attracting the client to this specific job. So I would focus on that. But really, it is going to be static in the sense that it's who you are. It's how you want
Sure.
to be considered, how you want people to remember you and think of you. The skills that you offer, that's a little bit different than that.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So this is where the meat of it is, creating a targeted resume. I tell this to people all the time, but regardless of how talented you are, if your resume is not aligned with your target roles, it will not be effective. So I have a lot of people that come to me and they're like, hey, I can do everything. But what happens is when you don't have a clear focus for your resume or your LinkedIn profile or your bio, whatever it is that you're talking about, when you don't have a clear focus, all of those skills that you're so proud of that are incredible, but they become muddled. So it's much more effective to have a clear focus based on, again, what kind of opportunities you want to attract. So by the end of this, you're going to hate hearing that, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. We always want to consider how the skills, the impact that you've made, all of this is aligned with your goals. Because if those two areas are not aligned, what you're showing and the goals that you have, it's not going to get you very far. You're not going to get the traction that you want. So transforming your resume for a new industry or function. I know one of you spoke about going in-house. That's incredible. Again, we want to make sure that you're aligning your skills, your achievements, all of that, what you're highlighting with the roles that you're applying for. So part of this is identifying keywords from target job descriptions. This can go with AI. You can do this manually, or you can do this AI. I like to do both because yes, there is a huge movement of AI and it can be incredibly helpful. However, it doesn't mean that it's taking the place of us. So I like to look through job descriptions and see if there are keywords and phrases that are repeated throughout the job description. But another really important tactic and really useful tactic is you can put a job description into ChatGPT and you can say, identify the 5 most important keywords. And I like to put in parentheses, like focus on hard skills over soft skills for this job description. And so what that does is it'll help you pull out the keywords and you can integrate those into your resume. Again, the goal is not to have AI write your resume, because if you do that, it will be very transparent. I'm sure most of you can see this. I can see it when you see a LinkedIn post or you see someone's resume. It's often very clear, the language that is used, whether it's been written by AI. And again, there's nothing wrong with using AI to help you, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that your resume is attractive both for a computer to read and a person. So one of my favorite hacks that I could talk about all day and all night, but it is so incredibly important and so useful, particularly when you're trying to make a career pivot, is utilizing LinkedIn Learning. Allison is another platform, Udemy is another, to help you build up required skills. So LinkedIn Learning and Udemy, both of those you can actually access through the public library. I just double checked before getting on this Zoom, but you can access it through the San Diego County Public Library. I'm sure you can access it through LA County Public Library. So these platforms, you can basically search for anything that you want and you can get that skill. So if you see that you're trying to make a career transition and you are looking at jobs that have a specific software or a skill, look that up online. Do a quick course or tutorial. This does not mean you have to go back to college. This does not mean you have to pay a lot of money, but familiarize yourself with the skill or the software that the job description is looking for. And what this will do, it will work for you in a few different factors. So it will help you get the right keywords on your resume. So it'll help you with that AI capacity and applicant tracking systems. It will also help you if you are trying to make that career pivot. It'll help you beef up the area that you want to transition into. And it will also show motivation to learn a new skill. So it can be incredibly impactful when you are trying to make any sort of pivot or transition.
Michelle,
Yeah.
this might be a question for later, so let me know if this is too
Yeah.
long. I don't want to take you out of your flow, but
No, that's okay.
um, So I am trying, I've been doing a hybrid role of product development and marketing and would
Mhm.
like to transition into like full-blown marketing. And I've been doing a lot of classes online as well. But when I'm looking at positions for, like director of product marketing, brands really want experience. It doesn't, the classes don't seem to be enough to carry you. So then I'm left with, well, how do I beef up my experience, right? So, I mean, I'm looking at volunteer opportunities and I don't know. I'm just trying to get creative to get the air quote experience, but I don't know. Do you really think getting the skills is enough to open the door? Or maybe it's just going to vary from employer to employer in regards to what they're
Yeah,
what's important to them.
that's a great question. So it is going to vary from employer to employer. Also, leveraging your network and getting an internal
Yeah.
referral or an intro is also going to make a huge impact.
Okay.
Um, it's a challenge. I mean, at the end of the day, unless they really believe in you,
Right.
you may get edged out by someone that has more experience. So
Right.
you're doing the right things. So looking for volunteer opportunities, if you can shadow anyone in potentially a cross-functional department or talk about projects that you've maybe assisted with in the
Mhm.
product marketing scope and
Right.
integrate that. One thing that I always tell people is it's very rare now that job descriptions match job titles. So if you are taking on some product marketing tactics and responsibilities in your current role, you can always put product marketing assistant or product marketing associate, whatever it is, in or just product marketing in a parentheses next to your job title.
Okay.
You can also do something if you're helping friends on the side, you can also put in a freelance role and put product
Interesting.
marketing uh, consultant. If you are,
Okay.
again, I say this so often, but it's so easy to forget. Doesn't
Right.
really matter if you were paid for it or not, as long as you can
Right.
speak to the experience. So if you
Okay.
want to add in a freelance consulting position, something like that, that can be helpful. But it is a challenging market. That's the other piece of it, is that I don't want to sugarcoat this for you. I wish it was different, but it
No,
is a very
no.
challenging market right now.
Yeah.
So using those connections and having someone advocate for you, that's going to make a big difference. But
Right.
it's just all you can do is one step at a time, and you're
Right.
absolutely on the right track.
Okay.
But getting those skills and getting, when I talk about this, it's really getting through that initial step. Because very often, if someone can speak with you, whether it's a phone interview or anything like that, then they'll have a lot more confidence that you might be able to take something on. But it's initially getting through that first step. And so
Hmm.
this is where these keywords and those skills and taking those classes can be very helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was helpful.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so including prior work experience. Resume best practices are to highlight 10 to 20 years of experience. If you have prior experience that you find valuable, whether it was that you're trying to repivot into an industry, or if you were with a big name brand or an agency, anything like that, what you can do is you can put a prior experience section without actually putting the dates or the job description. So sometimes clients come to me and they say, I'm really proud of this experience. It really gave me the foundation for what I do, but it ages me. I don't want to put more than 10 to 20 years on there, which really people focus most on the last 10 to 20 years. That's what's going to be the most relevant. So you still can put it on there, but I would put it in a prior experience section and just leave off the job descriptions and dates. And that way, if someone does want to learn more about it, then they can ask you in an interview. You can always touch on it. You can explain further, but it just gives them a little bit of information without going too deep. So gathering data, this is one of the most important things in marketing and sales. I am always shocked at the amount of people in these industries that don't actually have any sort of data. So any metrics, achievements, impact you've made, we want to include it in there. Anyone can say that they're a good leader or a good marketing person, but very few people can actually show it. And saying just a hollow claim, making a hollow claim that you're good at what you do, that's not going to get you super far. So this is what I'm talking about when I talk about that. So you can say something, and these are two real examples. 20 years of experience as a business development leader, improving business performance of a global enterprise. Okay, like that's fine. But saying something along the lines of award-winning business development executive driving multi-million-dollar growth in a Fortune 100 tech company, that's a lot more impactful and it gives a lot more information about who you are. So it is the same experience, but integrating results in there, even if you can't share actual figures. I have a lot of clients that come to me and they say, well, I can't share the actual figures. That's private information, or I signed an NDA or something like that. You can say something like multi-million-dollar growth, or you can say 6-figure growth, 8-figure growth, something like that, that still gives insight and perspective as to what you've accomplished, but it doesn't share private information. And so these are additional examples of data. Sometimes people come to me and they can't share metrics, and that's okay too. But some examples of data might be, how many people did you lead and support? Were those teams geographically dispersed? Were you working with global teams, working with outsourced companies, external agency partners? How big was your company? So if you are working for an industry leading brand, saying something to the extent of, you're working for a global multi-million-dollar organization, helps create some impact on there than just, oh, I'm in marketing. So it's all of these different aspects that help create impact and connection with the reader. It's these little details that help drive that and help position you correctly in the market. So same thing, did you negotiate any contracts? If so, what were the results? Did you negotiate a contract that got your company into a new vertical? Did you get a campaign with a big brand? What impact did you make on your role? So it could be, what impact did you make on your team? Did you optimize the marketing workflow? Did you make it so that people could collaborate better on internal documents or internal messaging? Did you impact the client? Or did you impact the industry? Whatever it is, we want to talk about what you've done, because what I don't want to do is, when I work with someone, I don't want anyone else to be able to put their name on your resume. So if you're just grabbing job descriptions from online and you're not including any unique information about you, it's not going to be super effective. So again, consider the unique value that you offer and the perspective that you bring as a candidate. So this is where, I wish it was bigger. I'm sorry if it's harder to see, but this is a resume. I want to make sure you guys can answer any questions or ask any questions of me. But so the way that I typically will do a resume is have a headlining statement towards the top. And so where it says marketing, strategy, and growth leader, that's where you can also change that depending on the job that you are applying for. So it could be product marketing expert. It could be B2B marketing expert. It can be executive marketing strategist, whatever it is, you can always change that. And then a headlining statement. And I always put a summary of qualifications. So this is built based on the jobs you're trying to target. It's like a skills matrix, but studies have shown that recruiters and hiring managers will spend the most time on the top third of the document. So this is where we want to create the most impact and show an overarching snapshot of your career. And then throughout the resume, then we go into that reverse chronological career history. Again, 10 to 20 years is usually the sweet spot. And then you can add in public speaking, education, affiliations, all sorts of stuff. My rule of thumb, because I know someone's going to ask me this, my rule of thumb is to get everything on one page if I can. If you cannot get everything onto one page and it is not accurately representing you on one page, then go to 2. But what you don't want is, you don't want just a little bit on one page or 1 1/3 pages. You either want 1 page or close to 2 full pages. So just keep that in mind. And you can have 2 versions. You can have a long version, and then you can have a succinct snapshot that you give to people and say that you have an expanded version as well. But before I move on, does anyone have any questions on this? And we can always, at the end, you can ask too.
I do have one question about that. Like, how do you decide, like there's 4 bullet points about on each of these job listings. So how do you know what you should keep and how do you keep it short but include enough and find that balance?
Yeah, so I there's no special sauce. It's just about playing around with it. And that makes it hard. But what I tend to do is I tend to put the overall overarching job description stuff like build comprehensive marketing campaigns or lead high performing teams to execute projects across diverse functions, stuff like that in the summary of qualifications. So job descriptions or job responsibilities that might be repeated through the different jobs and focus on the bullets just having the results and the impact that are unique to that job. So, for example, you don't need, just like what I was saying before, you don't need a general marketing executive job description on your resume. You want to make sure it's unique to what you did. So instead of putting a sentence that is pretty general, like anyone in that job title would be doing that, focus on the results that you delivered there.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And again, you can always change the bullets based on what the job descriptions are asking. So if they're asking for heavier on one aspect, and maybe you edit it down and take out some of the other information. It's kind of just, you got to go with your instinct and align it with what they're asking for.
Yeah. So you do recommend like creating a new resume for each job that you apply to?
You shouldn't have to overhaul your resume. So if your resume is built towards the kind of positions that you want to attract, you should always tweak and customize your resume for the job you're applying for, but you shouldn't have to overhaul it. So if your resume is built, a foundation resume is built correctly based on the kind of roles you're interested in. And this is why it's so important to figure out what kind of roles you're interested in before writing your resume, even though a lot of people think it's the opposite. Figuring out what kind of roles and job descriptions and responsibilities excite you first will help you so that you don't have to do much to your resume, because there's so much information out there about customizing your resume. And it is true, but if you're having to overhaul your resume for every single job, then that tells me a couple of things. One, it tells me that your foundation resume wasn't built towards the kind of roles you're interested in. And it also tells me that the kind of jobs that, and when I say you, I don't mean you in particular, but I'm saying a person. It tells me that that person is applying to such a wide range of jobs that they're really not specialized.
Mhm.
And so if you have a resume that's geared towards marketing and you have to tweak a little bit for product marketing or something else, that's fine. But if you're, this often happens. Sometimes, this is actually a great example. When I was in recruiting, we were looking for an outside sales representative, and people that were working in sales at the local grocery store were applying for that. And that's not to say that they shouldn't be pushing their boundaries and going for that, but the experience, the tech sales experience that we were looking for, that wasn't there. But because sales was in the title, people like that were applying for it. And so that can happen sometimes when people are trying to apply to too broad of a range of jobs.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to LinkedIn. So typically I start with a resume, and I start with the resume portion of the workshop because I feel very strongly a couple of things. One, that your resume and your LinkedIn profile should align. They don't have to be identical, but consistency across channels is what helps build trust. Excuse me. So we want to make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn profile are essentially telling the right message, so that if someone looks you up on LinkedIn and then comes across your resume or vice versa, they're seeing the same kind of information and they can trust that you have put effort into both of those and you're consistently sharing the same information. Because what happens when it's different is that people start wondering, well, is this what she did? Is that what she did? I don't really know. And which piece of information do I trust? So what LinkedIn does is it's essentially like your resume, but it humanizes you. So it has a picture, it can have some more personality, it can let you connect with your network, your networking group, people in this group, all of that. So it can be incredibly helpful. So much so that these are a few metrics that I always like to share with people. I'm sure that you've seen this to some capacity, but LinkedIn profiles with a profile photo receive an average of 21 times more views than with those without a photo. So that's because one of the beauties of LinkedIn is it helps you put a face to a name and humanizes you. So photos make a big difference. And so with that same note, adding a photo to your LinkedIn profile makes you 36 times more likely to receive a message on LinkedIn. Again, it makes you feel like you're reaching out to a person, but also it makes someone feel, if they are reaching out to you, like you've put in the effort onto your profile, and that because you have put in the effort, you have your photo there, you're probably more likely to be active on it and you're more likely to respond. And then this is a pretty interesting fact that I always like to share, but LinkedIn profiles with a professional headshot get an average of 14 times more views. So this isn't to say that you need to hire a professional to take your headshot, but having a professional appearing photo so that someone else took, not a selfie, something like that, it's going to positively impact your LinkedIn profile. So again, I am not saying you have to pay for it, but when I say professional headshots, you want something that looks like it was taken by someone else, not just sitting there taking it on your phone. And if you do have someone else take your photo, there are so many apps and stuff like that that can even make it look more professional, but it's always a really good opportunity to use a photo where you're looking at the camera, you're smiling, you're engaging with the camera instead of just cropped out of a group photo. So what should be included in your LinkedIn profile? Clearly, a profile photo and a background photo. And so with background photos, I say a few different things. You can go with a photo that resonates with your bio. So if you say something like, when I'm not working, you'll find me outside hiking, then maybe you have a landscape picture. Or it could have something to do with your company, or if you are a freelancer, or if you have your own marketing company, you may have your company information on your background photo, or it could have some sort of tagline like driving multi-million-dollar growth for industry-leading brands, something like that. Canva is a great tool to use that you can build your own LinkedIn background photo, so that can be incredibly helpful. And I'm going to walk you through all of this, but an engaging headline and summary that speaks directly to potential employers. It also could be potential clients, just depending on what you're interested in. Your contact info if you want people to reach out to you. This is not necessary. You don't need to. The beauty of LinkedIn is that someone can just message you, especially if you have open profile on. But if you do want someone to email you or go to your website, make sure that you have that information accessible, because unless you make that information accessible, it's really hard to find it. And then results-driven job descriptions that are consistent with your resume. So this is what I was talking about before. And then again, don't forget those relevant certifications, training, affiliations, education, and your skills. So any questions on this? I'll go into all of this in more detail, but I just want to make sure we're good.
Michelle, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I have mixed feelings on putting all of my bullet points under my jobs, just because I feel like my resume then turns into a just public information, right? Like my stance is, I mean, I've created this, it's the last thing that I haven't done yet, and I'm really wrestling with it because I feel like if I do add the information, I feel like people are going to be less inclined to reach out to me to ask me for my real resume. So I don't know if that makes any sense. But I understand the advantage of putting some of your accomplishments under your job, but it's the privacy thing, and I guess the motivation for people to like engage with me for the official document that is kind of where my mind is. I just was curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So as far as having the bullets be the same, they don't have to be the same. I have a lot of clients that will take or want me to create kind of an overarching, take all of those bullets and make it into a little bit of a description that so again, you want it to be the same information. It doesn't have to
Sure.
be word for word. It doesn't have to have necessarily the same bullets, but you want that if someone is reading your LinkedIn profile and they're reading your resume, they're not like, this is two different jobs. I don't know
Sure.
what I'm
Sure.
looking
Yeah.
at. So you just want to make sure that it's consistent. So if you feel more comfortable taking all of your information and condensing it and streamlining it into something that's just
Like,
more of a high level job description, that say maybe instead of talking about 3 different projects and each project was $5 million worth, something, I'm just ballpark
sure. Yeah.
marking.
Yeah.
You say, I managed 15 million in projects for this company, something
Okay.
like that. But again, just making sure that it is consistent information. But with that, and I talk about this a little bit later, but you always want to make sure there is some job description on LinkedIn, because if not, then you're just asking someone to go off your job title. So when they look
Okay.
at your profile, all
Right.
they have to know about you then is your job title, which
Sure.
maybe you have an incredible job title, but very often clients do so much more than what
Right.
their job title is,
Sure.
or they have this really high job title. That's the other thing. It kind of depends on what size company you're at. You
Sure.
may have a really low job title, but be doing a lot, if
Right.
not necessarily really low, but if you're at a smaller company, or vice versa, that
Right.
maybe you are acting as an executive level if you were in a smaller company, but
Yeah.
because you're in such a large company, you'd have a lower level job title. So there are all
Got it.
these things to consider, but you
Yeah.
just want to make
Absolutely.
sure that you're telling the right story so that someone is actually intrigued to learn
Okay.
more about you. Because ultimately, if they want to learn more about you and they think you could be a good fit, doesn't matter if you have all the information on your resume and it's going to be, or on your LinkedIn profile, and they're going to get the same information on your resume, they're going to reach out to you.
Hmm.
Someone's not going to say, oh, she has too much great information on her LinkedIn profile, I don't want
Right.
to reach out to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That was really great feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
And then
This is what I'm here for.
one other thing I wanted to ask about. So my current headline feels a little bit boring. I currently just have product developer and marketer and beauty industry. I feel like I need to amp that up a little bit.
Mhm.
I've been noticing that people put a lot of their history in their description with like slashes, like ex Unilever or ex,
Mhm.
big company or um how do you have any formulas for coming up with the best? I mean, I know it has to be tied to what you're gunning for, but do you have any thoughts on, because I think some people they go a little bit overkill.
Yep,
So like
totally.
what's that fine line between an engaging? I like what you said earlier. Something about driving multi-million dollar growth for high performing brands. But I don't know if
Yeah.
that's too
Yeah, yeah,
generic.
yeah. I have a slide
But
on that later. I'll talk about that in a bit. But
okay.
yes, that's a great question. You definitely want to make your headline. A lot of people will put so much information in their headline because the headline is a big piece of the algorithm. So when it comes
Okay.
to searching, there, that is a huge piece of it. And so people want like
As much.
Unilever alumni, or
Right.
whatever that is in their headline. But you're right, you don't want it to go too far. So I will touch on that
Okay.
momentarily. So
Awesome.
first though, I'm going to talk about skills. And so this is along the same lines of that, but part of the LinkedIn algorithm, which I do LinkedIn optimization. I am an expert on this, but I still don't know exactly how the algorithm works because it changes all the time. And I'm not afraid to say that. Anyone will tell you, anyone in this field, it is constantly changing. But with that said, the skills are a big piece of it. So now you can even have more, I believe they just changed it so you can have more than 50 skills on there. But I am going to challenge you all when we get done with this workshop to look at your LinkedIn profile and see what the first 2 skills are that come up. Because so often people don't realize that you can reorder the skills, and the skills are just listed on there in whatever sense that they were added on there. And so I encourage you to look at your skills section and see what skills are coming up first. If it's actually skills that align with what you want to do, or if it's just skills that you added on there haphazardly because they were in a job description, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you do want to make sure that the first couple of skills that are on there, those are the first few skills that people see. So the skills section, making sure that you have those keywords in there, it's all part of the algorithm. It's part of making sure that your profile is optimized, that you're coming up on searches. But when someone does scroll to your profile, it's a subconscious thing and conscious, but the first two skills that come up, those are the first two skills that people see. So this is along the lines where we were talking at before, LinkedIn Learning, Allison, Udemy. You can add additional skills on there. You can add those courses and certifications on there, but just make sure that you're paying attention to that, because so often people completely forget about the skills section, and they added those skills a million years ago and they don't actually think about it. So just be mindful of that when you are working on your profile. So
Michelle,
here's where, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
How nimble is LinkedIn with allowing you to change the order? Do you have to delete it and then re-add it, or can you
No,
just
no, no. There's a
the
section you
list?
can just, yeah, you can just Google how to reorder your skills. But
Okay.
basically, when you go into the skills section, you would click, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe you click the little pencil, and then there's 3 lines, and it says like you can reorder them, and you
Okay.
just drag them and you can reorder them. It's very easy. It
Okay.
used to be a lot harder, and I think that's part of the reason why so many people have not
Just gave up.
paid
Yeah.
attention. Yep. But now they make it a lot easier.
Okay.
So if you're struggling with it, just Google it. I'm sure there's a video tutorial or step by step, but yes, you can just drag them into whatever order you want.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so this is where we were talking about that LinkedIn headline. So it does not have to be boring. So just like what you were saying, instead of marketing manager at company, we can say something like award-winning marketing leader. So if you have won an award, I always use this. It's like a pat on the back. Award-winning marketing leader. It sounds much better than just marketing leader, because you're showing what you've accomplished. Company alumni, and then building experiential marketing campaigns that drive multi-million-dollar growth. So this is just an example, and you don't need the alumni, the company alumni. That's just, I have seen that a lot of people that have been at very prominent companies are very proud of it, and that actually can work in your favor. So if you do have a company or a client that you've worked with, that's awesome. Speak about it. What you don't want to do is put 5 different companies, like company alumni, company, like that just gets boring. So again, focus on what's most notable. A really nice way to think about it, and how I find it helpful to think about your LinkedIn profile and your resume, just kind of your personal brand as a whole, is to think about it like a movie trailer. So a movie trailer has all of the best parts of a movie in it, and it makes people want to watch the movie. If you look at that movie trailer, the top scenes from that movie are going to be in it. So think of the top scenes or the top most notable achievements from your career, and that's what should be part of your headline or part of your resume or part of your LinkedIn profile. So it should be a quick snapshot. It doesn't have to be exhaustive, nor should it be exhaustive, because quite frankly, no one wants to read that. So we want to just focus on the things that really excite people about what you've accomplished. And did this answer your question on the LinkedIn headline?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so how to write an engaging summary. Much like with everything else, every person will have a slightly differing opinion on this. I like to write all of my LinkedIn summaries, the about sections, in first person. You don't have to. Really, I want you to have a profile that you feel good about and that you feel confident in. And so if you feel that your profile, that you feel more confident speaking in third person and speaking in really formal language, you can do that. I recommend writing it in first person so you can speak directly to your target audience, you can engage with someone, and you can establish a connection. So something else that I like to do is to share something that makes you unique, or something that can help establish a talking point. So again, an example that I used earlier was, when I'm not working, you'll find me outside hiking, enjoying the hikes of Southern California, something like that. In my profile, I think I still have it in there, that I'm actually 6th generation born and raised in San Francisco. It doesn't really add a lot of insight as to who I am in my career. But when someone reads that, if you're from the Bay Area, you're like, oh man, you're from the Bay Area, you're from San Francisco, me too. And it establishes a connection. So I like adding those little gems and pieces of information in there. It's nothing too personal. So sometimes when I say personal information, people get very freaked out. But this is not anything that you wouldn't openly share in an interview or anything like that, but just something that, again, humanizes you. You're not just a name on a piece of paper. And this is another really important factor, sharing your goals. So if you are at a company, you may not want to say, I'm looking for a new role, depending on the state of where you are at your company. If you just got laid off, fine. Say you're looking for a new role. But you may say something to the extent of, as I grow in my career, I'm looking to gain more leadership experience, or I'm excited to continue to be a hands-on leader and foster a collaborative environment for my team, or a nurturing environment, whatever it is you want to say. And then again, quantify your achievements. So this is where you can quantify and make those metrics work for you. So say you have 10 years of experience and you managed 5 million in budgets at one company and 10 million at another and 2 million at another. You could say something like managed over 15 million in marketing budgets throughout tenure. Something like that. So you can quantify as long as you can speak to it. I do not condone lying on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, any of that. But as long as you can speak to it, you can calculate your metrics. And chances are you have a lot of great information that will make you look real good online. So just think about that. You can always integrate that information in. So adding pictures and media. We talked about adding your profile picture and your background picture, but particularly in marketing, and this is if you can share this information, but if you worked on a crazy popular campaign, tag it to your profile. Tag it to your job, or you can put it under the featured section, but stuff like that. You can use this as a portfolio. So just consider that it's not totally necessary. And if you don't want to share that information, you don't have to. But if you were featured in something, or if you were on a podcast, any of that, if you were on a panel at a convention, if you spoke as an industry expert, you can add all of that to your profile. And again, it just makes it more engaging because people can actually click on it. They can learn more, they can expand it, all of that good stuff. And I know I am almost done, I promise. I know we're getting towards the end of this. So asking for recommendations. So referrals and recommendations are a huge part of building online trust. So this is where you can reach out to it could be former bosses, employees, former clients, and you can ask them for a recommendation. And in the interest of time, while I talk about that, I'm putting this up so you guys can see it. But how to ask for a recommendation, I always recommend building a template. So you can copy this. I think, Berlin and Julia, is this going to be available after the recording?
Yes, it will. We'll post
Okay.
it on YouTube, but then we'll share it out in other places too.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, you can always go back to this and build this template or for yourself, but reach out to people, ask for recommendations, say that you're willing to help them with a recommendation as well. But it is really helpful when you have something like this, because then you don't have to start from scratch each time. So engaging with your network. This is where you'll position yourself as an industry expert. So posting information that you find insightful. This could be trends, tips, insight. You can share information. If your clients had a big win, client success stories or case studies, those are awesome to share. But posting on LinkedIn really helps build your credibility as an expert in your field. So it also helps people see you and come up on news feeds, because the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more you'll come up and the more you'll be recognized as someone to look to for advice. So this can be super, super helpful when you are trying to establish yourself as a brand, as a freelancer, or if you are trying to get a new role and you want to make sure that people feel confident recommending you for a role, making sure that you're active on LinkedIn and you're posting thought out, informative posts can be incredibly impactful. So a few key LinkedIn strategies that I always like to make sure that people know. Stay active to ensure that you're on people's radar. This is like what I was talking about just a moment ago. But also, it is a social media platform. So liking people's content. So if someone gets a new job, liking it or commenting on it, or resharing someone's insights that you find particularly insightful, or sharing an article that you found that you liked, and asking for recommendations. So all of this adds into how active you are on the platform, how people see you, how often you're coming up to people's minds, because if you are top of mind, people are going to consider you for opportunities to help their clients, depending on what you're interested in. But the more active you are, the more you'll be at the top of people's minds. Did someone have a question? Sorry, I thought I heard something. And so this is a fun one. This is 5 steps to improve your LinkedIn profile in 10 minutes or less. So first, update your profile photo and background photo. If your photo is super old, you may want to update it. You never want to meet someone where they look nothing like their photo. So just keep that in mind. You want, if people meet you, whether it's a client or a potential employer, you want them to see who you are. And then updating your LinkedIn profile URL. It's super easy. If you need a step-by-step guide, you can just Google updating your LinkedIn profile URL. But there's a big, automatically, when you sign up for LinkedIn and when you make your profile, there's a big, ugly string of letters and numbers at the end of your name, and you can remove those. I don't actually know why that originally was made like that, except for the fact that there's probably multiple people with the same name, and there are multiple people with the same name. So that was done like that, but you can change your LinkedIn profile URL to anything you want. So it just makes it easier to remember. It makes it prettier. It makes it easier to put on your resume. So do that. You can Google it. It's super easy. I know you can do it. And then updating your LinkedIn headline, just like what we talked about, it does not have to be boring. And then the skills section, making sure that it aligns with the jobs you're targeting, and then asking for a recommendation. So each of these, they're super simple tasks, but all of these small pieces, the devil is in the detail. All of these small pieces make for a very effective LinkedIn profile. And then finally, key takeaways. So this is through this whole workshop, what I hope you get from this. So first off, establishing your personal brand identity, figuring out what you want people to remember you for, what you want to be known for. Considering your target audience. So figuring out who you're speaking to and talking to them. You're all in marketing. I know you can do this. Figure out who you're speaking to and speak directly to them. Building a targeted resume with results and achievements. Anyone can say that they're good at their job, but very few people can show it. Creating an engaging and informative LinkedIn profile, just like what we talked about. Drafting an impactful headline. So again, making sure it's not boring, having those metrics. If you're someone that uses emojis, you can use emojis in your headline. I don't tend to use a ton of them, but if that's how you write, if it's what you use in your marketing tactics, you can absolutely add those to your headline. Adding pictures and media to your profile. Asking for recommendations because you have a whole group of cheerleaders behind you. Whether or not you know it, people want to help you, but you have to help them help you. So ask for those recommendations. And then finally, engaging with your network. So liking people's career opportunities, being proud of people, celebrating people's wins, sharing insight, all of that stuff. It is super important. And then finally, I just wanted to finish this off. This is my information. I know I threw a ton out at you this time, but I am here to help. So if you do have questions and if you do want additional support, I can help you with this because again, as much as I believe that everyone should learn how to do this for themselves, it is very challenging. You may not have the bandwidth to do this. You may not want to do it, and you may just be overwhelmed. And all of those are okay. because you have help and support, whether that's me, whether it's asking a friend, asking someone else, but just know you are not alone in this. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, it is very normal to be that way. So I hope you all learned a lot today.
Thank you so much. I think that's exactly what we were looking for,
Yeah.
because we always talk about this sort of thing in all of our meetings.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, thank you. So